See,
We'll just jump right in. I forgot the introduction, but we have actually,
A full house.
it's very full house. John, right? I always forget your first name.
John
John Peters, Fado Jr.
Bottle Jr. Man.
and Trevor
Lachlan.
and Mikey's in again today, and the regular crew. So the first topic will be kind of men's encounter.
Yeah, that's one we can all kind of agree on. We've all been there. Everybody
Yeah.
here's been in encounter.
We all survived
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
More or less.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
Survive.
We all came out different. We can say
Oh,
that.
yeah.
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 Different in a good
Left
way or
something
bad
there.
way?
Good way.
That's a good
Left a
question.
lot there.
Yeah.
Well, I did.
That ain't no joke.
Which on that we have another one. If anybody still wants to sign up, we have another one coming up this weekend. You got tomorrow, Friday afternoon, or Friday evening is going to start in Princeton, Texas, and we're still taking sign-ups. But where do we start with?
I think kind of what is encounter.
What is
We've talked about it a little bit before, but like what is it? Because isn't that the biggest hindrance where most people don't want to go? They're scared of what it is.
Yeah,
They don't know.
understand it, right?
Yep.
Or
So
they've
kind
heard
of-
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rumors.
Oh, the rumors.
Yeah.
There is rumors for days.
See, I never heard any.
I didn't till after.
That means same.
Yeah, I got crazy rumors. When I went, Lisa went first, and then she asked me if I would do it, and I was kind of thinking, well, she went, she wanted me to go, why not, right? And the thing is, it did wonders for her. So there was that example. So I went, not really knowing what it was, and came back, and it made drastic impact. Like my life was completely changed. And then the first time I served is the first time I ever heard any of the rumors.
Really?
And they were drastic. I mean, we're talking about nude baptisms and things that I didn't even know exist. I was thinking the encounter I remember was wonderful, but I don't remember it being that exciting. That was-
You don't
that's
remember
kind of
being
like-
that exciting.
I
Somebody
might
needs to
have
write a book
freaked
on some
out
of this
had I
stuff.
seen some of that. I was like, what the heck is going on? But it wasn't like that, but it was awesome. But it's so blown out of proportion. We take away from a lot from it because of that. We let people's opinions that don't even know what it is,
Yeah.
interfere with what we actually do.
Well, I think some of that is the nature of the testimonies that come out. We don't want people to go telling testimonies of other people, which are usually very personal in nature.
Yeah.
So then there's this idea of secrecy, which is not really secret. It's just I don't want to tell your story or your story.
Well, that's just respect.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think that's where it comes from.
I think part of human nature is kind of that. If there's a secret, you want to know the secret,
Right.
even if you don't think you do.
But the thing, like you see, because I did this when I came out. Like I was so wanted to tell people what's going on, but I didn't know how. Like what do I tell them? Why is this so good? What do I tell them? And I didn't know. Now I've gone enough where it's not that big a deal. Like we do testimonies, very personal testimonies, and some teachings after that.
Yeah, some worship.
yeah, a lot of worship. And that's always
Lot of
fun.
worship.
The worship
It's
is
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
Get to know some people.
Yeah.
Meet some new friends.
Yeah.
I didn't know Mikey liked to golf until that encounter when he went, Now I know that about him.
So he was kind of a special guest, huh?
He was.
Yeah, he
But-
was up there.
Yeah, he was. And we did that. You remember when we were doing the registration, trying to figure out where we put who? We had a bunch of guys we knew didn't speak English.
Oh yes,
And we're like, what servers speak Spanish? Martin. Okay, Martin's good at this situation. It's like, who else do you put in there? I'm going
Didn't we
through
have
the
two
list.
different? We had two different rooms with Spanish
Yeah.
speaking guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
We couldn't
Gotcha.
put all of them in one room.
Yeah. So we're sitting there thinking, who do we know that just does really good interacts with the Hispanic culture? Mikey.
And the thing is, Mikey even though we grew up in the same church, he has his. I don't know if you know Lumenflora, but his mom owns it, and so he grew up in a different Christian environment than I did. And like when he went, it wasn't as big of a change for him as it was for me. So he was perfect because the attendee we had in there, or the server we had in there, really didn't speak much Spanish.
Okay.
So Mikey covered, and
Mikey covered up, huh? Good job.
Some great friends.
yeah, he built a relationship.
You probably do. Is that one going to work, or do you just want to put this one in the middle?
I don't care.
Okay.
But yeah, we made some great friends at the encounter. Especially with the Hispanic, you got to connect there, and probably friends for life. Like that, you hear testimonies where you don't hear anywhere else. Just really amazing. The encounter really brings people together, is what I would say.
Oh yeah, well, except for you and him and Eric. Well, everybody. I knew him a little bit, but most of the guys I've known, most of the relationship have come from the encounter.
Yeah.
Nolan, Isaac, even Trevor. Oh, him I knew growing up. He was just not
You,
younger.
I still have a grudge with you. When I was a little bitty fart, you chased me with a little gas remote car.
I remember the car.
cousins
It comes
lived across
out.
the street from your dad's mechanic.
Oh
shop.
yeah.
And
Your
when we-
grandparents lived there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When that
In
little
Mexico.
car came about, we wanted to chase it, and all of a sudden it started chasing us. And oh my goodness,
That might have been my brother doing it.
it could have been. I don't know if it was you, but
Because
But,
Yeah,
I don't.
good deflection.
Yeah,
Deflection.
excuses.
Blame it on the brother.
You gotta try, right? Yeah, one of these days we'll go something.
so we're gonna have to.
Well, yeah.
Nah, you know, the encounter's just a great tool to
It is.
bring men together, right?
Yeah.
As men, we're designed to be a lone wolf, keep it all in, just fight and don't show no emotion. Just go, you know. Don't be weak. And I think we weren't set up that way. It's some of that stuff has got to come out and get dealt with, not just put away. You know, when you
And
get together
It's a good
with
place for it.
people that have the
It is.
same problems as you, all of a sudden you start finding some answers, and you're like, hey, now we're getting some progress here.
Yeah.
And it feels good to unload all of that pain and hurt, Get rid of that and move on with a new outlook in life. It's
Oh, yeah.
wonderful.
The
Yeah.
encounter will really. Anybody who's willing to go, just give it a shot one weekend. I mean, you're not going to lose nothing. What's one weekend? Sit around doing nothing.
You got half a day Friday.
Yeah,
And
and-
Saturday. And
And what
half a
you're
day
going to come
Sunday.
back with is worth every bit of it.
Yep.
Well, I mean, and the story's going to be different for everyone. I went very broken. I came out of. I guess in a way, I've lost respect for the church in general. Listen, I'm not blaming all the other ones, but the one I grew up in. But I could from that brokenness, which I also feel like I could never have gotten what I have now if it would have not broken the way I did. It was really hard, but the men's encounter was just, you find a bunch of men, and the thing is, like I said, the testimonies. Johnny Burke, which he's passed now, Johnny Burke gave a purity testimony about pornography, and I'm like, shit, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
I know I had some friends that were open about it, but they, like, even my closest friends did not know. I was very secretive, and yeah, well.
Yeah, all of a sudden you realize that you're not the only one with all these problems, right?
When you look around,
Yeah.
everybody's dealing with the same thing.
Which
Yeah.
that was outside
crap.
of just broke. I was literally broken, and
The thing is, when the guys that show up, what do you get? That's what you get. You get usually one of two: broken or angry.
Yeah.
Or a
that's
mixture of
very
the two.
true.
Yeah,
That's-
we've seen some angry. Yeah.
Yeah. And
But that's
Man,
when
that was me. I was angry. I don't think I felt that broken.
Oh, I was
Got to
broken.
be a big burden to carry, all that anger.
Yeah,
I
I
was-
agree. It weighs on you, and it is like there's people deal with depression, anxiety. Anger is just another one of those. Anger weighs on you. You carry that against the entire world, and you start carrying the weight of every person you meet. You take a little hint off of that, whether you want to call it like a soul tie or anything like that. But it's like it links you to that because you're mad at them. You don't even know why. And then every time you see him, it builds up a little bit. You just hate him a little more, and you have no reason to.
That's nonsense, right?
It really is. But
Oh,
but
I
you
dealt with that at
cling
one
to
point.
that. Yeah. And you got to find a way to release that. And that's exactly that. Freedom comes through Jesus Christ and that alone. But the encounter is a good step to get there. The encounter is not the answer, but it's a good first step.
I think
Points
that-
you in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think since I was so hungry, for me it wasn't a big deal. But we have seen some of that where there's not everybody leaves and starts a whole new life. So then there's the guys that are like, well, that didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But which I think is the wrong way to look at it, because at the end of the day, who are we supposed to build on? Not on the guys that go to the encounter.
Yeah, they definitely don't build on people.
Yeah. Because we see that.
That's what it points to.
We've had customers that came through here that there for a while. It seemed like that was a big talk. Even in the shop, it was when Abe was still here. Me and Abe would constantly be running into customers, and they'd be like, "Hey, I saw you at Encounter." We talk about it, and we had one particular one. I won't say his name, but really good guy. We ended up working on his pickup 2-3 days, and he was kind of in a rush, so he'd kind of come hang out with us while we were working on it. And I asked him once, "So you gonna go on the next Encounter?" "Oh no." He liked it when he went, but he wouldn't go again. And I was kind of, why? Well, he had gone, and then he had gone to some store somewhere right next to a bar or something, and he had pulled up and hadn't noticed a pickup, but he had seen a couple of guys come out of there, stumbled out of there drunk or something. I don't remember exactly the whole story, and I don't want to screw it all up, but he had seen guys that had been servers when he was there, and he said it bothered him so much because these had been the guys that had told him about the issues that he had kind of confided in. And he had seen these guys come out of a bar drunk, and it hurt him so much. And that's exactly the issue is, I know it's said at every encounter, we're all guys. Everybody has our problems, whether servers or attendees. But if you build towards the server being something that they're not, you take that out on the encounter, and the encounter doesn't deserve that kind of negativity because it's not the encounter's fault.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're all human.
If you build on people, people will all let you down
Yeah,
at some point
100%.
eventually. You know, everybody will let you down
Yeah.
Well, there's
at
also,
some point.
There's also the Bible talks about Jesus looks at the heart, and like my issues, you couldn't see them. I was very calm, very collected. I didn't get angry, but I had lots of problems nobody else could see. And that's actually Ben. When we started, since I seen the crowd was different than I expected, and I shut down. I'm like, I'm gonna fight this through. It was now we have more English speaking people, but when I went, it was mostly just German. I'm like, I came from a German church. I am not doing this. So I said I was going to be there, and I sat in the back, and I was going to bury my head in my hands and just suffer through it. And then Ben was like the camp we were at in Canyon.
Cedar Canyon.
Yeah, wouldn't let anybody smoke because it's a youth camp. He said to make an exception for the men's encounter, and it was through those clear doors. And he said you might see, and that what the announcement he made was very good, because he said you might see servers there because there's a lot of this expectation. The servers now don't have any more problems because they've been here.
Perfect, right?
Yeah, and that's what he says. You might see servers there, and you might see attendees there. And he said a lot of us have problems. Some you see and some you don't. That one hit me because I had lots of problems. Nobody's seen them. I would never let anybody know.
Yeah.
Fighting it on your own.
Oh yeah, big
Yeah.
time.
So a good example of that you choose a lot. I know a guy. I'm still pretty close to him at his point, but has everybody heard of Rabbi Zacharias?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So
He's a good dude.
yeah,
Smart.
and he would go, oh, he didn't end well, and that huge scandal that broke out.
Yep.
And my friend was going off on him, and I looked at him in the eyes and said, "Why?" And I'm like, "You're every bit as guilty as he is." He's like, "No, I'm not." I'm like, "Do you watch porn?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, so sorry about you, man, but you've committed that sin in your heart,
Yeah, Bible's pretty clear.
and God does not go, oh, that sin means more than that sin.
Yep. 10 points,
Yeah.
20 points.
Yep.
Yeah.
But growing up, is that not the biggest thing? Aren't we taught that?
Yeah, like there's a point system or there's
Basically,
a value, right?
Yeah, value
Well,
Like-
it's
like
just
you
a little
have- you
sin, it's
lied.
2 points.
Exactly.
It's never talked
Okay.
about though. That's the way how it's where
No.
I grew up. It was never talked about, but you know.
I think I remember growing up. For a little while, my parents were like Rhinelander, old school, and there's a big thing is Amadoip. I'm sure everybody here's heard that.
Tweemodoip.
Second baptism,
Yeah.
how bad that is. And growing up, that's what we were taught, and we were pushed so hard, like you cannot do that. That you will go to hell. And I've had people. I've asked the question. I remember in youth once when I was. Man, I don't think I was even a teenager. I'd be maybe 9, 10, somewhere in that area. I don't remember exactly when my parents switched to the Sommerfeld church. So we went to youth, and Frank Redekop was my youth leader for a while.
I
but
could
I
see
had-
that being a good idea, like for reals.
What's that, Frank being youth leader?
Frank?
Oh, he's awesome.
I bet he is.
Oh, yeah. We went to a youth retreat once with his brother. I don't know if he would like this or not. I won't say which brother because he might get mad at me. But the whole way up there, so we had this small group of guys that were like, we were regular attendees at youth. So we got to ride in the pickup. We didn't ride with the bus. We were special. So we were like the whole way up there jamming out to like Slipknot and stuff. That was our youth retreat. That's why I won't say names. He might not be happy, but it was fun. Like he connected with the youth in a way that a lot of other youth leaders wouldn't. But
Wouldn't have made that connection, right?
exactly. But it was so much fun, and so I learned a lot from those guys. But I had asked, I think it was I won't even say now which preacher. One of the preachers came down. They had a lot that came from Canada at that time, so they would sit in with a lot of the youth sessions on Friday night. So I had asked somebody that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the Bible is very clear on that." And I'm like, "Well, where? Like, what does it say?" And they throw the verses at you about John's baptism, but they never give you anything. It says something about everyone's supposed to be baptized, and I think it's kind of taken out of context in the German Bible. It says something about "Ola sollen sich einmal Deuten luten" or something like that.
Well,
like you're all supposed to be baptized once.
So John told his disciple that they needed to get a second baptism from Jesus.
Did he?
Yes,
See, that
that's in
changes that
is in the
already.
Bible.
But the thing that always got me on that was we were taught that right there is enough that you're condemned to hell. But the Bible only talks about one sin that's unforgivable, only one. It
Yeah.
doesn't say there's a second one.
That's blasphemy.
Yeah,
Because Jesus talks about, or was it John that talks about that? He says that his baptism was for repentance.
mm-hmm.
Jesus' baptism was for the renewed life.
Yeah. But that could be argued that to say that was a baptism of fire, not baptism of water, the one we get when we're baptized. Like the one for water is symbolic that this
But see,
is the day
John
you have
was
accepted Christ
baptizing
and you've
before-
given your life, right? That's what we call that. But John says there will be one who will come to baptize you with fire and the Holy Spirit.
Right, but John was baptizing before Jesus came.
So who baptized John?
I don't know, but there was John, that's why they call him John the Baptist.
Well, yeah. I thought they called him that because he was going around baptizing.
He was.
Okay.
He
Was he even baptized then?
I don't know if he was baptized,
Oh, okay.
but he was baptizing people. But
Yeah.
he told them, he said, because he had his own disciples.
Yeah.
And he told them that they needed a baptism from Jesus, and that would have been a second. My daughter's had 2 baptisms already. She was the third one.
No, but exactly, like that's why I think I think we've taken something that it's a very important symbolic, like it's a very important symbol in our life.
Yeah, I shouldn't demean it.
But
either,
it's
or diminish
exactly
it.
we need to hold it with really high regard.
Yes.
But we don't need to make it such a big thing that like when somebody does get get baptized a second time because they feel they need to, we shouldn't condemn them for it.
Right.
And growing up, that's what I was taught. Like they've been baptized twice. We don't associate with that.
That's another. See, that's another thing I don't get. I actually, when I went to the men's encounter, there was a guy there. He was the leader of the Mexican mafia for Texas. This guy, I mean, you 10 miles away, you could see he's gangster.
Yeah. It's one of those you didn't want to run into in an alley.
No, he was older now and a little bit chunky, but he told me some stories after he found out I spoke Spanish. He told me stories, and he was a preacher's kid.
Right.
And he said we couldn't do nothing right. And he said another thing is he said that the Christians in the church will eat their own.
Mm-hmm.
He said we murder, rape, and do whatever, the worst kind of atrocities. But he said we are a family. You can look
I
at it
see
however.
that.
That's why he said you can look at it however you want to. And I said I'm not saying we're not. We do all kinds of evil, but we do not eat our own.
No.
And that's the biggest thing. Like what you just said. Like somebody gets baptized for a second time. That's one of the biggest, and gossip, which goes right back to gossip. It's one of the biggest problems we
Yeah.
have as Christians in general. To make myself feel better, I'll tell him about how you're screwing up
Yeah.
somewhere. I've seen.
Yeah, that's how it works.
And we need to
it's-
get past that.
And exactly, and
I think it's a big one there, like going to exactly that. How many times isn't that we let it happen to where one denomination does that on another? And because
another one.
we've ruined relationships from church to church because we don't necessarily agree, but now all of a sudden we've kind of, well, they don't do it the way you're supposed to. We're supposed to do it this way. And it's run so rampant and common in this area amongst the like the German communities. And not even just the German. I mean, this is a worldwide, like nationwide, across America. We see so much hatred because of things like that.
we have a comment.
We have a comment? A good one? Oh, even if it's not a good one, I can't read it from here.
I can read it. You can't read it, bro.
I just took my cap off because it was blinding me. My eyes still haven't fully adjusted.
I had a close
Excuses.
friend who struggled with porn, and you could always tell when he fell into temptation. He became mad, and he became mad and had this bad attitude. After overcoming that temptation and accepting Jesus, he said to me that he felt that the Lord was chastening him and allowed the devil to attack him to open his eye to change and have the Lord help him overcome this temptation.
I don't disagree. I even after the encounter, I thought it was finally over, and it wasn't. I finally found some peace supernaturally. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the self-control to quit. And it just, one day it was just gone. So I don't, like I said, I don't know his front story, but I have no, I think I know where he's coming from. I don't know, like to say that Jesus did that or let it happen, because but there's, okay, so let's go to that. The Lord's Prayer says, lead us not into temptation. So what's the opposite? He could lead us into temptation?
Well, I think is the Bible says he never tempts.
Then why is it in there? Do not lead us in temptation. Bad translation. I mean, I'm just like, this is one of those. Like, why is it in there?
This goes to the story of Job. So the story of Job.
There you go.
The devil came to God, and he said, "I bet you I can get this man to turn against you." And God said no. And God let the devil go down and tempt him.
Right. To the point where he almost killed him.
Yeah. So what's in you are tempted is not that God is tempting you.
Right.
Is that you are being tested.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But could we say that has changed from the Old Testament to the New one?
I wouldn't see how. The Bible says he is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
So then he can lead us into temptation. Well, he can let us be led into temptation.
The thing is, he can let us. Yeah, he can take up his protection, but the thing, I don't know he does, because that would be as simple as say when he says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you."
I don't think he leaves us, because he didn't leave Job.
Yeah.
He just let the devil kind of have his way with him.
Well,
James 1:13, let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself tempts no one.
Which it's not really what we're talking about.
Kind of.
No.
Does he tempt you? No.
No, he doesn't
So
tempt you.
can he let you be
Can he
tempted?
let you be
Yes, but
tempted?
There you go.
I'm not really 100% sure that we're not. Well, and the thing is, I don't know, because I've never studied this. I can't say one way or the other. I don't see
I'm
it.
not saying it either. I'm
but-
just wondering.
Yeah.
I don't know if porn is technically, to me personally, a temptation. It's more of a desire of the flesh, right? The flesh desires certain things, and
Your
if
nature,
you start
your original
feeding
nature.
that it,
Gets
that
stronger.
it gets stronger, right?
Absolutely.
So you feed it and
I
feed
would
it and
agree with
feed it. At that point, I don't think it's temptation. It's your body desiring that dopamine hit you're going to get from,
Yeah.
you've now created an addiction to that, and you got to break that.
I feel like that's one where
Chemical.
the devil might have initiated it. Maybe when you're young, kind of opened that door to tempt you that first time. After that, you pretty much do it yourself.
I didn't have one until I got married.
Really?
While after marriage. I don't remember having any issues with it before.
Or did you just not count them as issues?
I
Don't
I
really-
remember seeing the
Yeah.
some of the naked magazines, things like that, but
Never really had
no.
a way on you, no lust for it, nothing.
not
Well,
really.
I can say back in the day with my mom, when we had trouble like that, it was more of a coping mechanism at that point. And that's how I kind of got addicted to it for the long run, I think. I mean, it was just plain misery, and still didn't even know Christ at that point either. So that's the only thing I could really go towards to
One thing you had control
feel
over.
any better.
Makes sense. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is one of those kind of would change person to person. But if you've kind of washed yourself, like you're brainwashed into this, and it's one thing you do to get, like you said, that dopamine high out of it.
I could see that.
Sometimes it's a lack of discipline. You walk into it until you're really ready to let it go. Even though you've got Christ, you have all the tools to get out of it. And it might, like I said, it's person to person. I'm not saying it's gonna be everybody the same way, but I think a lot of times it's as simple as you kind of cling to it and you're not ready to let it go. Once you freely will let it go, I think most of the time it will work. And like I said, not every time. I
100%
know.
disagree.
You might, but
I
the
think
thing
you're
is,
right.
Then,
It's
then I can
different-
look at myself.
different
and see
person
it's
to person.
Yeah, because mine
That's your
is not
experience,
like
yeah.
yours.
Because I was to the point when I checked myself into some kind of sex rehab. That's how tired I was of it, and I realized there's also drunks that never had to take a drink either,
Yeah.
and I wasn't going to be that.
Yeah.
So, but which I think another thing we're missing a lot of times is the person to person is so different. If we look at, we're made in the image of God, And of all the people that have ever lived and all the people will ever live, plus the ones that are alive now, there's no two alike ever. So if God has that many different personalities, and
Does that mean solutions?
yeah, probably. But I'm just saying like that what works for me doesn't work for you or any.
But how many times
Partially
have we
it
not
does.
applied this to other things? We've lived. So if we apply that to sin, how many times have we said, how come when you pray for somebody, you don't see a result? And then we say, well, we've listened to this pastor. He does it like this. Let's try that.
Yeah,
We've done this. Let's try that. It
Doesn't
didn't
work.
work.
Doesn't work.
Is that then also the same way? The Spirit flows from somebody in a different way from person to person.
I believe that.
We're not going to ignite the same way.
Yeah,
another
not
person
not
does.
just that. I think we are made different, but it says when we accept Christ, He makes us a new creation. So there was a pastor recently that I listened to, and he kind of expand on that,
We just talked about this.
and he's like, it doesn't say that he's going to make a copy of somebody. He makes a new creation. That means he transforms you again. It's not just he made you unique, but no, he is transforming you into a new creation, and there's not two that are the same, right? And that just the way he explained it, I was like, wow, I'd never thought about it,
That makes sense. I heard somebody say the original word that it talks about, the new creation, it actually translates better into something that has never existed before.
Exactly.
That-
Something unique. It's not a copy of anything.
Yeah. Or
It is something brand new.
Yeah, it's never
Yeah.
existed.
And that I think that goes with prayer, because what is it? A couple of months ago, I wasn't here. I was listening to you guys, and you talked about that some have the gift of preaching, some are apostles, some are spiritual gifts. And I was like, some people, they probably don't even know that their gift is not praying for people for healing,
Right.
And if you step into that and that is not your gift, that I think that's where a lot of people experience that, try this, try that, this preacher does it this way, we'll see if that works. If it's your gift, it will just flow. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to copy anybody or anything like that. That's the way I see it.
Well, I talk a lot when I'm
We
not
all know.
when
That's a
I'm not
gift.
nervous.
That's a gift.
I actually.
yeah.
So I remember when I did my first, and I was chomping at the bit when we did server training, and they were giving out testimonies. And like, I want the purity one. I wanted it because it made such a difference in my life. And I walked up there with the mic, like I was so nervous. And once I heard my voice over the speakers, you couldn't pry that thing off my dead body. I loved it. I still before we start though, I mean it's the same thing. I'm nervous.
You hear?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, even still, even if it's not even if it's just me and you and him, and I still get nervous when we first start.
Here I'm comfortable. You put me in front of
Oh, I'm
actual
not.
people, I seize. I can't do
not.
it. I can't do it in front of 20 people. But then we have Bible study. Like when we just have our normal group here, I get loud.
No, really?
He's
The
just trying to
regulars,
make up
though.
stories again.
Make up stories. Yeah, that'd be good if it wasn't true sometimes. but-
So, John, have you ever thought about Man's Encounter? It is a really great tool. Have
Yes,
you ever thought about expanding? Finding different programs? Because Man's Encounter was great for me, and it's still I love going to Man's Encounter.
Right.
I'm pretty dedicated to it.
But are we going to do something else yet?
Well, what do you think we need to do? What do you got in mind?
Something that's better than Man's Encounter yet.
Okay. Well, hey.
Men's and kind of graduates kind of thing.
He doesn't even let us know.
are you
We're sitting there. What are we going to
talking
talk about? Here's
men
Isaac. I'm
that
going to sneak
sex
this in
steps?
there.
Yeah, towards the middle or end of this on the podcast.
Yeah. What do you
Go
get?
ahead. Sorry.
Now we're all
Yeah.
curious.
No, it's just a question.
Walk to Emmaus or something?
Well, his walk to Emmaus is kind of the same concept. I think. So the people I know that have
I
been, I
still
think
wanna
it's
go.
very.
I've
I
never
would
gone.
like to get too, just to experience it. But I
Absolutely.
think it's very similar.
Because I believe that a lot of people, you know, their freedom starts at Men's Encounter.
That's where I
But
realized what freedom could be, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What is after that? You know, because
Oh, now I get it.
there's people that don't really know what to do after that.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to find my way.
Well,
Good.
one thing that became very clear to me, and I shared that with a local pastor today at lunch. Men's Encounter is definitely not meant to be a church, right?
No,
it's
it's really
not meant
not.
to replace your church. So we want to be a little careful that we don't, just build on that, because there's so much more to a true church
Yeah.
than what the Men's Encounter can offer just in one weekend, And I think that's a point that we want to be pretty cautious of to keep. But I see what Isaac's saying. Let's say there's
What's step 2?
the next step further would probably be maybe even attending a Bible school or some type of conference that gets much more spiritual. And Men's Encounter, we're dealing with core issues, right? Core issues that people don't know that they have. Pride and ego and, all this buried sin. As a man, you got all this buried sin in you sometimes, or people in general, and you don't know how to deal with it. So the Men's Encounter is a tool, and through Christ, there's a way to get free from that sin. Obviously, Christ paid for that sin, but the tool there is that you see that, wait a minute, there's 50 other men dealing with porn here. There's 25 other men that are dealing with adultery. There's 25 other men that are dealing with anger issues or suicide or whatever it may be, I think the powerful tool is that you see you're not the only one dealing with an issue, So I agree. I think Men's Encounter is a tool where you deal with core issues. It's kind of like the ER, right? You go to the ER, they're
Yeah.
Good example.
gonna figure out where you're bleeding, where you're gushing blood, where your bones are broken, and you're gonna take care of a lot of that. But you probably still come out of the ER and you still got some things to work on. You
Need to
probably still
rehab.
need to
Yeah.
do some rehab, some physical therapy, and keep going. You don't stop there. So I agree with that. I think we need a local program around West Texas here that takes it to a whole nother level. Takes to the next step. Almost like a discipleship to take men from being inactive in a church, from just being listeners, to almost train men to stand up and be leaders in a church. Teach Sunday school, teach, be active in Bible study. Teach an adult Bible, do a lesson for adult Sunday school. Kind of take it to the next level, not just be passive in church and just sit back and let it happen. And we see that quite a bit in our community, where there's so many men that just kind of coast along in church, right? They go, but they don't want to get active. They don't want to be too big of a part of it.
The
So I think,
issue
we
is
need
I
to-
don't think that's only in this community. Men have taken a huge step back in our culture as a whole. It's been bad.
Yeah, you're right about that. Men have just kind of stepped back and just.
But I think the best thing we can do is, like you said, our community. We reach who we can.
Yeah.
And so for us all, since everybody
It
here
needs to
kind
start a
of
community.
exactly start at home. So many people are quick to jump like in the mission field and go out in the country, other countries,
Right.
and they want to start there, like hit Mexico, hit Africa, hit whatever countries around the world. But we don't take the time to look in our own backyard at the people that we need. We should start here before we work ourselves everywhere else.
Yeah. 'Cause there's a lot of passivity. I think for me, I thought a lot about what you just said, like sitting back and not being passive in church. I didn't know what to do. I was not armed. And I think this is what Isaac makes a very good point. Even when I came back from the Men's Encounter, what I have found was, well, not to brag, but I found Isaac. He was a spiritual mentor. Before that, it was Vili Pana. But what I learned, I did not find in the church. Some of it's from learning some of the people you can listen to online. Anybody can find them, and some will some you'll learn better from than others. Just kind of figure out which one it is. But there's not like I came out with a hunger. I wanted more, and I would not give up. For the people that just kind of come out and they don't I don't think if they don't look for it, it is very easy to get back into your old ways.
Right. So there's no direct replacement for just being in the Word and reading the Bible. You know, there's no amount of sermons that you'll see on the internet. There's no amount of lessons that you'll take. You know, I think for me personally, there's never a time where I get more out of it than it's just me reading the Bible. I might be reading something. I might not even have a goal when I'll open up my Bible and say, God, what do you have for me today? And I'll read something there and I'm like, wow, you know, like just that relationship with God speaking to you like that, that's amazing. There's no replacement for that, you know, and too many Christians get into this rhythm where they'll just listen to other pastors, they'll listen to sermons online, and even, you know, at this day and age, there's a lot of people that won't go to church, but they will do the live stream at home, and that's good too. It's definitely not a bad thing, but there's no direct replacement for the fellowship that you have when you're in a group, when you're actually there. And then there's also no replacement for being in the Word personally, you know, taking your own time, spending time in the Bible. Because now there's no filter in between, right?
Yep.
If I'm bringing a message across of some sort, talking to a group or anybody for that matter, you know, there's a little bit of there's some of my personality in there, right? How about taking that personality out and just go straight to the source, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard. It takes a lot of discipline to be in the Bible a lot. Some people are better at it than others, but for me, it takes discipline. It's much easier for me to sit down and watch a movie for 2 hours
Oh yeah, I can
than
see that.
to read my Bible for 15 minutes. Why is that? I don't understand it. I think that's the flesh again. But the value that I can get from being in the Bible is just strong, and I think there needs to be a good program just to focus on that. Just stay at the core, right? Like, hey, this is the Bible. This is how we study the Bible. Just give people that hunger that Herman's talking about. You know, that's.
Well, I think small groups would be really good for that. But the thing is, if the churches I've been to,
Well, even that, who's going to lead the small
that's
groups?
the thing. Small groups.
Yeah, we need leaders, right?
Exactly.
We need a lot of
'Cause
men to
I think
step up and
the
be
one.
leaders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because a lot of
that's-
it, even with what you're saying, you know, about the church, it's all good, and a lot of times the thing is, it sounds better than it actually is, because so many people, they go to the church and what do they automatically make it? The church is kind of the God. It's not
It's a
his-
replacement for the relationship.
exactly. So I'm not going to say any specific church, but like everywhere you go, you see people. Our church is a church you want to go to. You should come to our church. You should check out our church. And it's always, they've kind of put their pastor on a pedestal because he's a better preacher than the next guy, and it happens everywhere. But even the church can become a dangerous thing when it's not interpreted correctly. So there's no replacement to, like you said, relationship. And the thing is, I'm not going to put that a church is bad, because a church is good, and the intentions of the church are good, and the pastor's intentions are good. But we're so quick to idolize things, and I think it's human nature to do so. I said it on our last one. Like I said, people probably even get mad at me for saying it. Some people have taken the Bible and made it something bad, made it something it's not, because they've idolized the Word of God, or
To the point where you can't listen.
to the point that they don't even know who God is. All they know is what the Bible says, and they've made the Bible their God, and they'll quote you verse for verse, but never really give you anything.
Well, how did the Pharisees act in the
That's exactly what I'm
Jesus'
getting at. But
time, right? They knew the Bible in and
better
out.
than most of the other people. But
Well,
don't
and
we?
when Christ was right in front of them, they didn't
Yep.
want to accept it. you
So
know?
don't we see that a lot of times? Like in today, I think we see an awakening now. Like if you pay attention
I would agree.
to the generation right before us, like look at all of our parents, more religion and more tradition. This next generation, we're coming kind of out of that, and we're seeing that it's not the building the church that's what's important, it's what's inside of it. But before that, it was the church. Like Zendak Smart, Sunday morning we go to church. This is what we do. Whether you were there mentally or not, you were there physically,
could
and
be
that
hungover or
counted for
drunk,
something.
didn't
And it
matter.
doesn't really. Sitting in the church doesn't mean anything.
No.
If you're not there actually to be there, we're not accomplishing nothing. And that was my entire youth was spent that way. I was there physically. I was never there mentally. I've slept on the back in the back of the church. I've done a lot, you know, and it was not good. It was terrible. I know it was, but
now we're finally seeing an opening where the younger generation isn't as focused on the place, but it is small groups. Like the younger kids are getting together and reading for themselves and learning for themselves things that we never saw.
Well, I think in small groups you can have discussions like this. Like the pastor brings a message,
Yeah.
and it's good.
Yeah.
But it won't have the detail, and he can't answer your questions because he can't sit there and answer questions all day.
Yeah, because it might not look good if you stood up and said, "Hey, what did you say?"
Yeah,
That might be a problem.
Even if you want explanation on
Yeah.
it, or
So
But that kind of
Veer
goes to
off from
read
it.
for yourself, and,
Yeah.
and
No, that's
that's
true.
That's why I
That's
say
very
it's not a bad thing, but we need a way to bring that out as well for the people to realize. We oftentimes don't explain, and I think that's kind of why so many times you have to say Encounter is not a church, because
Right.
somebody takes it
Mhm.
something and makes it it's not. So,
Yeah.
somebody takes it and makes it something it's not.
they're like,
And-
hey, if Encounter isn't around tomorrow, then they've lost their identity. in
Exactly,
Christ, right?
and I feel like that when,
Their
when you see a German church split, because we see that not as much now, but like growing up, how many churches do we have now that we didn't have, say 10 years ago?
and they all came from some.
Oh,
And they all came from splits, from somebody got mad and split up, and things like I said German, and I don't mean it that we're the only ones. It's just that that's the culture we're in.
Yeah.
But you see that so many times. Like even was it the Methodists just had that huge split?
They just denounced from being a Methodist.
Exactly. So this is going on all over the world, but somebody gets mad and moves on, and then they split it up. And the thing is, you stick with that church, and you end up making that church not so much that we are now looking at a house of God, that we're looking at a church, but now we've made that church what the Bible speaks about when he talks about the synagogues.
To me, the splits, some people take it very drastically. To me, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Culture is shifting, from
Very
even
much.
from our parents to us, and then even to our kids. There's a little different culture there, right? Because some of us speak multiple languages. My
We've
kids
also been
don't.
urbanized into this environment.
Yeah,
Yep.
and our parents were different, so I can see where the need is to have different boundaries.
Yeah.
But we got to remember that that's not what makes you a Christian. Wearing a certain thing to church doesn't make you a Christian. It's what's in your heart, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes.
Exactly.
That's what.
That's what Jesus.
That's
said.
where God is looking, right? He doesn't. If we're wearing a T-shirt or a fancy suit to
Yeah.
church, some places that would be a big deal. Like if you didn't wear your Sunday best. Oh wow, look at him. He's not. I mean, you definitely want to dress reasonable.
Yeah, you don't
know.
want to get in there and
Have some
know,
respect for
exactly.
women and children and whatever, but
Yep.
at the same time, wearing a suit or a T-shirt to church, God is looking at your heart. And what's really in there? Is this guy really here to serve me, or is he just here to make a show in front of the
Yeah.
people there, right?
That's exactly
Yeah,
what I'm aiming
so-
for. It's like that's exactly the point. We need to remember what it is, and we need to not make it what it's not. And it's exactly that. It's come together, worship, and praise God. Don't come together and gossip about the next guy and show up because you feel obligated to show up. If you have a desire to be there with God, then be there.
Which then
That's exactly the point.
really the next step from this would be how do we teach something like
How do you spread that word?
Yeah, how do you get that across to
I don't know.
people around us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give them the mic.
So my relationship with God is maybe a little different than anybody. I was kind of the same church, grew up in that, and where I first really found God was in a tractor running a baler. The stinking baler did not want to work. Stinking Notter's back there. Herman knows a little bit. He's punched screens.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know where to turn. I was done. It was 1:00 in the morning. I didn't know what to go. I never done this before. I knelt down beside the baler and I said, God, you're real. Let me finish this field, like without even really thinking about it. But I put
Desperation.
I put God in there, yeah. And would you like the baler work for the rest of the night? I finished out. But that gave me an aspect of the real relationship with God. Like you don't find like some people find it in churches, some people find it where, but you can do it wherever you're at. Like nowadays, mechanicking, you run a diagnostics, you cannot find out what is wrong. You just ask God, give him a little bit of time, put that relationship. You have that relationship, he's there. Not like what you said earlier, people will fail us. That's the most amazing thing about God. God never fails.
This is true.
So you connect that, there you go. God's an awesome mechanic too.
We've learned that.
like, yeah.
How many times have you
Yeah.
randomly sat there and thought, I don't know what to do about it, and all of a sudden it clicks in your head, try this. You're like, that doesn't even make sense.
Oh, I'm slightly envious of Abe. Abe gets all of them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We don't see him work anymore, so I don't know that. There's no proof anymore.
We don't let him come in here and brag on it either.
That's true.
I'm just kidding.
No, definitely, that relationship right there, just trusting God. I'll deal with anxiety, like
Yeah.
I'll get tense. Oh, I get all wound up about whatever. And I'll be like,
Yeah.
man, you know what, God, I have no idea how to handle this. This is out of my element. I don't know how to deal with this. I put it in your hands. And just the relief I'll get a lot of times, oh man, I just relax after that, Nothing has changed as far as the situation. But now I just know I've accepted the fact that I can't control it.
Yeah.
And that it's in his hands, help me through this. And so the devil's always trying to load us up with anxiety and just pressure, right? Wherever he can, deception, whatever all his tools are.
Yep.
So
Anything to hinder you.
Yeah, anything to mess you up. He'll take anything that God has good and he'll just take it like a gear and he'll just move it over one notch. That's all he wants.
Yeah.
Because he still wants it recognizable as a good thing.
Yep.
But, he'll put his little spin on it.
The thing is, the Bible even clearly says, like, we know he's going to do that.
Yeah.
But even when he does that to you, the Bible says anything that the devil intended for evil, God can use for good.
So we had some of that. Even a good partner of mine, that building, my new building that I bought.
Oh, yeah.
We closed it on
accident.
Friday. Yeah, the accident. Closed it on Friday.
The
next
next
Friday, somebody parks your car in there.
In the office.
Yeah.
In the office.
I didn't think much of it, and he's like, "Man, I think we should just quit because we're going to start a new business in there." And I think we should just quit. Or he's kind of like, "Maybe this is a sign." And I said, "Maybe."
Should ask them, are you a sailor? They're real big on omens.
Well, we just talked about like maybe it is, and then I told him, but like that, the Bible says, "What the devil meant for evil, he'll use for good."
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had it quoted for repair, and the insurance paid it out. Well, we ended up repairing it ourselves, so we had a nice chunk of investment for the company. So it ended up being a good thing, but it was one of those. It could have. I didn't think much of it. I mean, it's car slammed into it. We'll get it fixed. Not a big deal, but some people look at it differently. We all have different spirits.
Yeah. And, you guys asked a question, what do we do next? And a thing I do not see a lot is it's like people go to church and it's like, the thing about a pastor is he can really only really know a few. No. And I've spoken to a lot of pastors about this. He's like, I can really only know about 8. And anything past that, I don't know them as well. And so it's like, the thing is your pastor, he doesn't see your whole life. And
You're right.
he can't. The thing that got me was having a person that had a really deep relationship with God, still beyond anybody that I know today, and being close, because she saw the things in my life that were tough, and she had the time to spend with me to teach me through these things. And I know a thing that broke my mind way back when is she asked me, so what do you define sin as? And I'm like, well, murder, and I state all these things, and she goes, no, that's part of sin. Sin is merely choosing to be without God.
Yeah, missing the mark. I guess that's the definition of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Missing what he made you for.
yeah, and so God is always with you, but you can choose to not be with Him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I never thought about it that way in my life. And if you to even read through the Bible, and when people do sins, God is not in the minds, and you too can clearly see they made a choice to be what's about God in that time. And God came to Adam and Eve in the beginning. God already knew what they had done. His first question to them was, well, what? Why are you hiding from me?
Yeah.
Why are you choosing to hide?
That's where the
From
excuses
me.
began, right?
Yeah.
John must have had something to do with it.
Yeah.
We are going jokes.
No, I'm going to
Beside the
ask him.
point.
Yeah. But she taught me the deeper relationship. And it's like pastors say great things, but they've got those small group that they have a deep relationship with.
That's true.
But
this kind
but
of
they
goes-
need
Oh, wait.
people in the church to get together and also have deep relationships and not just like, oh, I know, and all that, because no, it's like I was taking care of a patient, and she's like, I want you, and I'm like, huh? No, things. She's like, I don't want the professional face that you put on. I want you.
Yeah.
No.
No script.
Yeah.
Well, so and I see what you're saying about like let's. I'm still a part of a church. I don't go there much, but and I can see like grouping together, helping your fellow man in church. But to me, we have to have a better version of connecting with people. What the Bible says, the sinners, the people that we don't see on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that?
I don't know. I think the small groups thing, it goes really well, and I think the church is there for a reason. Like Sunday morning, all of that's there for a reason.
Absolutely.
It goes back to, it's been long before we started the podcast. I think it was one of you two mentioned once. We should be at the point where even if we hear a crappy sermon, we ought to get something good out of it.
Oh yeah.
And I think that, I think
I
that's
agree
very
with that,
true. But
still.
that doesn't even mean the sermon's crappy. Maybe it didn't speak to you.
Right.
But if we're in relationship,
You should go with enough hunger.
yeah, if you're in relationship with Christ, when you hear that sermon, 90% of it might mean nothing to you. But if you're actually in a relationship, something in there is gonna be like, hey, I didn't ever see that.
Yeah, I can't disagree there.
Nah.
But like, there's Jesus was accused of this, eating with
what?
the sinners
Oh,
and the drunkards.
that's why they call him a glutton and a drunkard.
Exactly. So I think next time we'll get this
Well,
red
we-
cable out of here. But anyway.
We should, I agree. I like to see what he did there. Peter did that too when Cornelius called him over.
Mm-hmm.
And the others were like, "Hey, why'd you go over there?" Well, the Holy
Gentile.
Spirit led me there, right? And then it goes into saying that the gospel is for Jews and Gentiles alike,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as in my situation, a lot of people that I used to run in circles with are still trapped in the old lifestyle, right? And they want to be there.
That's true.
Maybe they don't understand it, but they want to be there. And I got a heart for them. I'd love to see them come out of it, but it's all in due time,
Yeah.
Sometimes our patience isn't what we don't understand. God has so much more patience than we'll ever understand, obviously. And we're like, man, well, somebody needs to go over there and do something, but I think it's all in due time, honestly, in a lot of situations.
I think a lot of it is God's timing. We often want to make it go faster.
Right.
But he does have a time and place where we will be or maybe not us. Maybe we're not the ones to do that.
Right,
but
I'm
there
not
is a
even talking
place
about
for
changing it,
everybody.
but just loving on people.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
I
so
get
that's
that.
I also think sometimes we take that as an excuse, right?
Yeah, I think
Because
we do.
because there's
sometimes.
people, they're hard to reach. You really don't know how to approach this situation. For example, I know a missionary. He talked about they were getting a lot of prostitutes off the street. Wow, how do you approach that? And
Oh,
and
it's
he
gonna
said
look bad
he-
on you if you do.
yeah, exactly. And he said he didn't care. They would basically go out where the prostitutes were and they would ask her, how much do you charge per hour, 2 hour, whatever. They would pay her,
Take her to a room.
take her to their house, you know, and show them what a family is, you know.
Show them what love is,
have
right?
dinner with them, you know, and
Yeah.
show them
But that's somebody
What-
who
what
doesn't care about
is-
what their image looks like.
Ex-
Because
ex-
that's
exactly.
so many times
Well,
how
issues
should
slide.
how
should
many
we strive for
times-
that?
Well, yeah, we should. I'm not
No,
arguing
I want
that.
to.
I'm just saying. But one thing like that one doesn't necessarily apply to our area because you don't really see
but
that
the
as
thing
much.
is,
but-
there's plenty of stuff.
Oh yeah,
here
there
that can
is
get us-
drunks, thieves. There's more than enough other stuff here
Yeah.
that does apply. Like prostitution, maybe not one for our region, but
But the story still applies.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So I think a lot of times it's just showing them there's a different way.
kind of like
Show
what
them
Hoopling
love,
does.
right?
Don't
Heidi Baker, she has a whole group. They'll dress up as strippers and get hired on as strippers and strip bars to get sex slaves out. That's their
But that's just a
sole
perfect
mission.
sign that everybody's called to a different ministry.
Yeah,
There's people
But
that
but
that
the-
is
but
where
these,
their,
these
their
people
heart is.
that have because the reason why I make a big deal because I'm dealing with it. All right, they do not care what it looks like.
Oh, I
They
hear what
would
you're
not be
saying.
welcome in most churches.
Yeah, I know what you mean now. This is why we keep them around.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Mike.
So I've
Lay it
been,
on.
I've been asked this question a lot. So the life that you used to live before Jesus was you had that relationship with him. You were passionate about it, right? So my question is, how can you go back to that with Jesus?
That is very good.
Because
answer.
you were passionate about it. You want to help, just like you said, you have friends. You would want to help those people. How can you be strong enough to go back to that with Jesus?
Mm.
So we got to remember to go in there now and just be very vocal, be very loud is not going to
That's
win them
also
over
true,
because
yeah.
their wall is going to be up to here.
It's easier to
right
hurt
away.
and they already
someone
expect that.
because they're already expecting that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the best way is to lead by example, right?
Well, the thing is,
live the
how
freedom.
would we then take the verses that Paul says where when he works with the Gentiles, he says, "I become a Gentile." Like I've thought about this before, and I'm not very
We've had
vocal
some
on it because
conversation of it.
it's one of those things where you could really screw it up.
Well, I
But-
think that's a cultural thing. Like, let's say if we were to go to, we'll use Old Colony for example, or a different church, right?
Yeah.
I think to me, what I get out of that, because I read up on that the other day.
Okay.
Like if he's going to go and witness there or just be a part of there, you know, he's not going to try to stand out. He'll this is how we dress here. All right, I'll put on how we dress here.
Mhm.
You know, that's what I gathered out of that. Like we've seen so much in the Bible about how the Pharisees and all the how they acted and how they thought they were, and I think he kind of got it. He goes, you know, if I'm dealing with fishermen, I'm going to be on a fisherman's level, right? I'm not going to try to act like a, he was an educated man. Paul
Yeah,
was,
he
you
was.
know,
The
Yeah,
highest
he's a Roman
very
citizen.
educated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I-
the Pharisees. Yeah.
And I think when he went and dealt with fishermen, he was on a fisherman level. He didn't try to say, "Hey, you guys got to be on this level."
Yep.
And when he went and dealt with, somebody else, that's what I get out of it. And when I see the religious things that we have in our area, where we get so stuck on culture and dress and certain things,
Mhm.
it's a big deal to have a beard in some local churches
Oh,
here,
yes,
right?
I've been told that too.
But if you're going to be a part of there, if you're going to attend there, if you got a reason to be there, I think then, well,
Maybe we should shave it off.
maybe just shave it off and just go with the flow. Not to say that you're going with the flow on all the things they're doing, but you're going to get more done that way than you're going to get done coming
Yeah.
in there and standing out.
It's the old saying, "What is
They're
it?
getting-
You
wall
win
is gonna
flies
be
with
up.
honey."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vinegar doesn't get you mud flies.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of it is the taint of pride. No, because it's like,
I would disagree there.
With what? I didn't hear you.
Okay.
Pride.
Oh.
So
Well, I actually could tie it to that. Never mind. I'll stay out of it.
to take me as an aid. Okay, I was soaked in the hospital a long time, and the RNs in the ICU said I would take you any day over a doctor to do CPR on me because you do it all the time and good.
Yeah.
But when a doctor would said what's talking resume, I would say the same to him as the cleaning girl.
Yeah.
Let's like they put themselves so much beyond me that they just said, "Oh, he's just a peon." No things. That's pride.
Well, see, where I was coming from in that is, for me, which I think it might be in the same arena. For me, it's the reason because I'm not trying to change anybody else. I'm just trying to change myself.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I've often felt a lot of peer
Well,
pressure.
you're an exception.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I would deal with you.
Oh.
Just
Once the cameras are off.
Yeah, but I deal with the idea of both ways, reputation in the church and outside, as a bad guy, or it just
Yeah.
I don't want to, and whether they're connected to pride, I don't know, but there's that. How do like these people that just go out? They go into strip clubs, and they get slave workers out of there, and they free them. They win them for Christ. But the first priority is freedom in general, free from their master or their pimps that have had them. I don't know. I gotta tell you, I would have a hard time inviting somewhere like that in my home, and it'd be my fellow sister, my fellow brother.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is the area you're in. Oftentimes, probably kind of you develop a personality according to, and your heart according to that.
Right, but the thing is, we have so many different things here that
we could do.
Yes, well,
and I get
that we
that,
have trouble walking into because of what we were trying to.
And that's exactly where I think where Nolan is correct. Like oftentimes, me and Nolan disagree, but this is one time I think we 100% agree on. Pride, I think, more times than not, is our issue.
I could see that, because at the end of the day, why do you want to be seen? Because you're prideful.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're scared it's going to hurt your reputation. That's pride.
There you go.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if you look at it the other way, it's an issue of pride. An issue of pride doesn't mean you're full of pride. An issue of pride can be even insecurity. If you're so insecure that you're scared to do it, it's still an issue of pride.
That's
Whether
actually a very
too much
valid
pride or
point.
no pride.
That is I've never heard that before. Somebody needs to write that down. Where's my pen?
We have it on video.
Yeah, pride goes both ways.
Yeah,
I have never
Just
heard
say
that
that
before.
somebody's big and fancy.
We often use just prideful,
Pride.
but we don't ever think about it that it's still
It
an
could be
issue of pride
opposite.
when it's the other way around.
You don't see the value of yourself.
Because some people, they demean themselves so much that they're not worth it. So when you look at salvation, how many people say, I'm not worth it? Like, I don't deserve this. That's an issue
Well,
of
and
pride
nobody
as well.
does. But if you don't accept it just
Yeah.
because you're using that as an excuse that I don't deserve it, well, that's a pride issue.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly.
Your
The blood-
pride is not letting you.
The
Yeah.
blood made us worthy.
Yeah,
It's-
because
it's
like
what
you
it's-
said, none of us really deserve it.
Right.
Yeah, so
Can't earn
the
it.
fact that it's there, take it for what it's worth. Like, take it for what it is. It's free.
But we should start winding down. We're already past an hour. We don't want to
Yeah.
overwhelm the people and all our new guests.
Yeah, we'll scare them away if we have one of those 2-hour ones again.
That's right.
But I don't think.
No, so I think we're all called to ministry in a little different ways. You know, like
Yes.
talking about the strip club, I couldn't go in there and be useful in
I
there
couldn't
with
either.
my past. I'd be in trouble immediately. You know, so
But isn't that sometimes the people that have lived that life, they understand those people the best, though, right? Because there's people, they try to do ministry in that area, but they really don't understand.
They're
those
not
people.
Because
successful
they
in
haven't
it.
been in it. I see what you're saying. I see what you're stepping
I
in.
think if you get free from that, I think it's at least worth looking at it if that is an area where you could be doing ministry.
It's a good point.
So that one particular area wouldn't be for me because I know my weaknesses. But let's say from alcohol, right? Like I understand alcohol drinking in excess for a big portion of my life, and drugs, for instance. You know, I understand that. I understand what that life is all about. So yeah, I agree with that. Who better to reach somebody that's in a situation than somebody who understands where they're coming from, right? So.
But I think even in that, even though sometimes I'm not saying this one would or wouldn't apply, but I think oftentimes, even though we're maybe somewhat suited to do it, that's not necessarily where our calling is.
sometimes that might be.
But we
It-
should be ready to jump in. If the
I
opportunity
yeah,
presents
I agree,
itself.
and I think that would be one of those times where you really need to be somewhat in tune with the Spirit to hear, because if you all of a sudden
Yeah,
get that calling that says maybe I should go in there, I don't know why, but and the thing is that's one of those things that would be very controversial to think about. If you were to play that and say, well, the Spirit told me to go in that strip club, that's going to be like, oh crap, like you just
but this is one of
that's
those
blasphemy.
This is
but
one of those
I
kid
don't
songs.
know.
Trust and obey.
Well, yeah. So I agree. You should be ready to do that, but I also think that that does need to go back to this somewhat. If you just feel like you
Okay,
need to
but-
go in
but
there, maybe you ought to really question
Here's
that.
another
Yeah.
thing, though. Are you
Yeah.
not allowed to screw it up and come back from it?
No, I don't think that's the case, because how many times have we screwed up
Is
in
it on
life
30 already?
and been able to
Oh.
come back? But that's, yeah, I'm not even going to play that game because
Wait,
yeah,
well,
I
So
do
for
know
me,
there's that.
you know, in that particular instance, I think I would have more value in ministering to the men
Yeah.
that actually wanted to get out of that lifestyle.
But I think
right?
that's
like because
that's where you fit, because to actually reach the women, it would require someone. To
Yeah,
put
that
the
would
outside
require
of that.
someone
I
else,
couldn't
right?
do that.
Yes.
Yeah, which
that's a fact. But
So
like
maybe
for-
outside in the parking lot.
yeah, in the parking lot, the men that came out broke and left
Yep.
their whole paycheck there, I'd be like, hey, I know what you're dealing with at the moment.
Done it
And then
twice.
you know, maybe educate them on why they're having that desire to go in there in the first place. And I mean, because it's not what you think, right? Because
Yeah,
when you're
exactly.
deceived, you know, I thought I was drinking to have fun, is what I was thinking.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I just drink to have fun. I don't have to drink. Well, that really tested itself when I decided I was going to quit, you know, because my whole lifestyle was geared around that. So, for me, just understanding what the problem is a big thing. Like, so many people live with sin and pain and guilt, but they don't know what their true problem is. Like, they're
Yeah.
trying to cover it up with something. But facing the fact and realizing what is the problem.
Once that bottle's
You know,
gone,
you
what's
got to
under there?
diagnose an engine. You got to diagnose what's going on in
Mhm.
my soul inside of me that's tearing me apart. A lot of people that are in a bad lifestyle don't know what the problem is. You know, it could be anything from your childhood.
Yep.
I have
It
a
could
friend
be,
did that.
you know, and you could be carrying that and could spend a big portion of your life trying to cover that up with alcohol or any type of addiction, right? So
Yeah.
That's
very
that's
much.
that's what I have said a lot of times. Most people that drink a lot don't have a drinking problem.
yeah, they have a different core
They have
root.
a different
They have
problem.
a feeling
that-
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One
there's
o-
some
you
kind of
gotta empty
root.
that bucket
There's
so you
some
can see
kind of
what's in the
root
bottom of
sin
it.
or some kind of root pain down
Yeah.
there
Mhm.
that's feeding this problem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're
And they're
covering
using this
something up.
problem to keep the other one under control.
is
They
it
don't
not
want
the
to
same
feel
with-
that one.
All addictions, like even pornography.
Yeah, I think all addictions lead
they're
back
all
to
there
a
to
core
cover up
problem.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you don't fix the core problem, you're never gonna
Find that freedom.
truly cure that addiction either, because the core problem is still there.
Yep.
That's also another thing I've never looked at. I've always looked at, especially drinking, not so much. Which I could see drugs. When I had very low self worth, I had tendency to do more coke because it feels good.
Mhm.
Feel miserable as a human being and calm down. But yeah, if those two apply, then why wouldn't the other ones? That's another good point.
I think
hadn't
one
thought about
addiction is equal to another. I think
Yeah.
all of them are like that.
I
Every
wouldn't
addiction
disagree
is
with that.
basically a band-aid to cover up something else that you have to constantly replace because the band-aid falls off.
Yeah.
And then you put
Wears
on a new
off,
one.
hangover
Stop
kicks
it.
in, and got to go
That's right.
again, right?
The
I'm trying to find an excuse how that doesn't work, but I can't find
And
it.
I'm just,
Yeah.
right now my mindset is you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah, so
Can we
that's-
hear it?
I think that's why we got to take let's say you want to move forward in life. You know, it happens so much around New Year. Hey, the new year, new me.
oh yeah, the
right?
resolutions.
So I think it's real big to take a true inventory of yourself. You know, like look into yourself, and just be honest. You know,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
maybe write down, hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way, and get to the core. You know, get to like,
That's
hey,
where
I
small
just
groups
don't
really
feel
help.
like I'm worthy.
agree.
You know,
Yeah.
or I don't feel like.
A lot of that goes to what you said, go to the word, go to that relationship with God when you're trying to find that core. Don't look like sometimes it is other people, but when you really just sit down with you and God and get to
He
it,
will
you
never
know,
tell
yeah,
anybody.
exactly. Yeah, that's
That's
it's
the
simple.
beauty.
Yeah.
You know, God will convict you right there in the pew or right there sitting beside someone, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
person
Are
next to
you
you
sure
never
he'll
even
never tell
knows.
anybody? You ever think about it, like when somebody goes on and they say, well, "I got a
Pretty
word for
sure.
this person," and they go out and tell them,
God told me
But
about this.
see, that's
and
not
then
one
I
he
feel like
can.
I need to talk
But
to you.
those are not the ones that they confided in God
Okay,
yet.
maybe he does.
Those are
But-
the ones he wants them to confide in him.
Oh, so they're the ones who
That he's looking for.
he's not keeping their secret because they haven't told him.
They
their
haven't
secret.
told him the secret.
Okay,
He's
I won't.
tr-
I won't
he-
argue that. I was just kind of curious
I
there.
think God gives somebody a word to give to them because he sees a secret. And he
because it's
wants
a
it.
secret, they won't even tell him, and he's gonna let
And-
them know that
and
he
he's
already
like,
knows.
buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it.
I won't argue with you there. You're probably right. I just thought like, wait, that seems a little contradictory, but you're probably right there.
I think this is pre-pouring out.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. You
Yeah.
think you know better. You don't know better. That's what that is.
That's exactly
All
what
right, I'm
that
on
is.
board. I'm on board.
So
Anyway.
a question that I got from a fellow server that really goes into this. He served with me probably 3 or 4 times, and he asked me. He's like, I've seen guys give testimonies, and he's like, why does yours always hit so hard? And I said, because I get up there and I don't hold back. I let you see a glimpse of every ounce of pain that I've ever felt.
Like James Leland last time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was
And I'm like, I don't care if you go out and tell. I don't care if you crucify me or spread rumors about me. And I'm like, I've seen a lot of people die. And the thing is me not what's wanting that to take place is a lot of the pride in me. And pride lies to you. It lies that it is a friend to you. But it will always leave you in the end.
True. True. I mean, like, on. I was going to try to finish there, but there's not. You hear this a lot, and I think people mean it different than they say. It's easy to say, "Well, I don't care," and I don't think we have the option not to care.
Yeah,
we're not here for ourselves.
No.
Because that's whatever that's one thing I've been battling lately. Like how you can have the relationship and you can talk to them and try to figure out how is the right way to live. This is why we had the pads.
Herman, use your pads.
Oh, they don't vibrate anymore. But how does this work? And you can shut yourself out because there's times where I'd rather just be by myself and not talk to nobody. But we don't really have that option because he didn't make us for ourselves. He made us for loving on other people. So this like what you said, that we don't care. You said I don't care if you crucify me. We need to. We need to be able to overcome it, but I think we do need to care. I don't think we have that choice not to care.
Oh, look at the few people in history who didn't care.
It's been something that's been on me,
There's
dude.
been
I
some
can't,
really cold people.
can't let it go.
Yeah, I think you're in a way right. I get it too because I kind of have that mentality. Like Lisa will tell you, I don't care my appearance. If people don't like me, another person's opinion in that situation doesn't matter. But I think to an extent, we need to care about people's opinions in the way that we don't. I hate to say the word, not offend them, but sometimes offend their feelings.
Well, I think and I think they look similar, but there's a big difference between not caring and being able to overcome it.
Okay, so what are we looking at then? And that might be a topic for another time. And we've exceeded an hour, but the
Yeah.
thing is, it's kind
Well,
of one of those
I
things.
think-
Like,
I think
what
you-
does it look like?
What might that up to each?
What might that up to each? Huh?
The way to handle the situation itself.
Well, no, not really that. What does it look like?
Well,
Like what is the difference? If you say like your opinion doesn't mean anything to me,
That's when you don't care.
yeah, that's when I just wouldn't care. But to say
I care.
your opinion will not hurt my pride, there's got to be a difference there. I can say that your opinion is worthless to me.
Okay, so
but I can also say that your opinion won't hurt me. They're not the same thing.
we're really opening a can of worms here, but I
Yeah,
think
we might make a note. Somebody for next.
Yeah.
I have everything.
Well, let me say this and we'll end it there. I believe the difference, and this is really, I think, where the idea of pride, one way or the other, comes in. If you don't have self-worth, then you really don't want to care.
But if you're going to go into self-worth, now we need to go to identity. And then we're going to start a whole nother can of worms on who are you?
Yeah, maybe we
What
better
is
finish
your
it here.
worth through the identity? What is your identity in Christ? Which actually,
My
you
wife
know
makes
what?
a big deal of that. I don't
we
understand
need
it.
to. Oh, I do. Oh, it's a very big deal to me. Like
don't
we need
understand
to
it.
get people in, and this would be one like I would love to have you come back for that if you would be wanting to do one where we could literally sit down and discuss identity, because as for Encounter it would be really good so I'm trying to think back through all the sessions and stuff. Do we do one on identity?
We do, don't we?
We do 4 pillars. We do a bunch of stuff, but
Well, 4
truly
pillars is
identity,
really-
like self-worth. What is
Well,
our
self-worth
identity?
is
We
identity.
call ourselves Christians. We call ourselves children of God. What does any of that mean?
Well,
What are the verses to prove? What are you worth? Because guys come in there, like let's say somebody comes to Encounter and they're broke down. They're at the point where how many guys come up there? They're separated. Their families don't want nothing to do with them. And then you're trying to deal with this, and you're trying to explain to this person how much God loves them. What do we do to show them what you are really worth? It's very simple to say, well, Jesus died on the cross for you. What does that really look like?
His blood is what you're worth.
Yeah.
Isn't there a session? It's called
True worth.
True worth. Okay, but
That'd be
even in that,
identity.
I don't think I've ever gotten anything out of that as far
Well,
as identity.
I think the people that bring it probably don't really get it. Well, you do. Why don't you do it?
Because I can't talk in
Alright.
front of people.
You are now.
Well, there's a difference.
We'll have you in a different room.
Put me in a different room and
We'll
give me a
put you in the
microphone.
translator room.
Yeah.
At the top.
Yeah,
'Cause
you,
I
you
have-
speak from
like,
there.
Aaron
I
will
had-
run a camera and put you up on a projector.
Yeah,
There we
that's
go.
right.
It's not a bad idea.
Because I don't have it anymore. I had left it in the truck, and a buddy of mine gave it to a homeless guy. He said he had a little bit of cash on him, and he had seen my notes, and they were in his truck. And I had like 2-3 pages of notes on self worth, like who am I? That was the list. The title of it was Who Am I in Christ. It was everything I had found on that, and he had given it to somebody, and I'm good with that.
right.
This guy probably needed it far more than I do. But it was something that hit me because you can't know how valuable you are until you know what the Bible says about who you are.
I would agree with that. I still don't understand it.
But that's like, to me, there for a while I wanted to start something in Plains, and I with time, and then I don't think I had the discipline to even sit down and actually make something happen. Trevor knows. But yeah, and we just it's exactly that. We didn't have the control to get it done. But my thing there was priority was this is before you can know anything else, you have to know who you are. And you can only know who you are when you know who he is. And through that you will find out what
And
you're
what
worth to
he's
him.
paid.
Because
Yeah,
there's
paid
that song,
for.
it's a Jeremy Camp song, I think. It says I'll never know how much it costs.
Yeah.
And then like Todd White says that's not true. You need to know how much it costs because you'll never know what you're worth if you don't know what it costs. I mean, think about it. Put yourself in God's shoes and say, what if your kid, you were willing to sacrifice your kid for everybody?
Bro,
That's
you
how
don't,
much
you don't have
it's
to
worth.
convince me. I know. I just don't understand it.
Well, but exactly. Well, think about that. You use one of your kids. Could you kill one of your kids in
Kill
order
him,
for
no.
somebody? But he basically did. I mean, he didn't drive the nails, but it's not any different the fact that he allowed it to happen. Would you not be willing to step in front of a bullet or step in front of somebody with a knife for your kids? I mean, your kids are worth that much to you as a dad, but would you?
But see,
I
even
would
that,
die
I
in a
can't.
heartbeat.
I don't doubt that I would. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But I can't put myself in that situation because I've never been in it.
Well, I know, but you can get at least somewhat of a little taste. You can't ever fully grasp it. But even just to close your eyes and picture it and say, one of your kids, if you had to picture that happening, that someone was going to just beat them to death and do that.
Now
and,
you
and
got
it's,
me.
But it's for the entire world. I don't think I have that in me, but think about it. My kids are so
You
important to
start
me.
beating on
and
my
yet-
kid. Now we got a problem.
Okay, see? That's exactly. Now we're back in pride. But that's what I mean. How important
Now we're back in
were
pride.
we that he was willing to let his son suffer all of that?
There was
No, I
one
agree.
time when I went to youth camp. One of my best analogies I love to actually kind of get a good grasp of it was there's this disease that no one could cure, but this one guy's son is only had the ability to cure the disease, whatever.
His blood would
But
do
we
it,
had
but
to
they
take all
kill
his
him.
blood to kill him in order to save
He's
the
gonna
world.
die. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that goes into it. True worth. Who are we?
We
What are we
need to
really
finish.
worth? We tear ourselves down and we treat ourselves like crap. We abuse ourselves. Look at guys that are cutting drugs. Most of that's to cover up something. If we knew how much our body was worth, what our soul was worth to God, we wouldn't treat ourselves the way we do. We wouldn't use pornography. You wouldn't look at a girl that way if you knew what we were worth. Like if you knew what she was worth, you would feel bad about doing it. But we don't teach that. We don't instill that into Christians today because we've kind of made it like it's a simple prayer of salvation. If you live the way you're supposed to live, we're saved.
Cookie cutter.
Cookie cutter Christian. There you go. No more Red Bull? I had one earlier right before we started too. That's kind of why I'm a little riled up.
It sounds like it. We really need to get. We don't.
Yeah,
want
we
make
need
this
to
too long
stop
where
this. Yeah,
people get all
I will keep my mouth shut.
burned out.
But I'll say, well, what's one last thing? So the thing I said earlier was not because I did not care. It was just meant as you are worth so much to me. I will take the chance to help you.
Yeah. Well,
If I could even have a hope of in some way letting you know how much Christ truly cares about you, that is worth my life.
well, yeah. No, I think in all honesty, I think most a lot of people that say they don't care, it's not actually what they mean.
Yeah.
And it's I'm trying to change it in myself, and therefore that's what I'm trying to get that attention or pay that attention to people. Like you shouldn't say that you or really think about what you're saying when you say you don't care. It's just like the word you can't do that. Watch me. You shouldn't do that. There's a big difference.
It's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
You shouldn't go 100 miles an hour through Oklahoma City or through Oklahoma because you get thrown in jail. But that you can, sure can. I know. Done it.
I was about to say, do you know this for a fact?
Yeah, I do. Anyway,
Yeah.
we better finish it there. Somebody want to volunteer for an exit prayer? If not, I'll do it. All right, I'll do it. Father, I thank you that you brought us together again, Father, for the men that we have here that are so passionate about teaching. Father, I pray that you would protect each and every one as we go home. Father, and that you would guide us throughout the week, how we could be an example to the people around us where we can change our communities for the better and love on them. Amen.